Hello everyone, I'm Nicole Watt and welcome to a new series called Sketch Starters with Nicole. In each video, I'm going to share with you a card sketch and then 2 projects using that sketch. So let's get started with our first sketch and take a look at what the sketch itself looks like. So it's pretty simple. I like to keep my sketches pretty light on detail so that way I can build out the detail in the project itself and not feel like I have a whole bunch of little elements that I need to add in. So for our first project, I'm going to take that pretty literally, and then in the second project, I'm going to break out a little bit and you'll see how that's done. Okay, so our first project uses the Wonderful Wycinanki set, and actually I'm going to be using the dies, which is the Polish Papercuts. And if you're wondering why they're named something different, it's because Vee-chee-nan-ki in Polish is actually Papercuts. So I'll be using the dies, and I'm using some of our gradient cardstock sets in shades of purple, cherry blossom, and green meadows. So I actually have everything already cut out and ready to go, so we could really just dive into putting this project together. So I have 4 strips, and this is each of the shades of pink in the cherry blossoms set, and then I have the darkest shade from the shades of purple, and those are going to be my 5 strips in our from the sketch. So normally I don't put my adhesive straight onto the card base, but because I'm adding these in strips, it's easier to do it that way. So I have each strip cut to 1 1/8, which will basically get me exactly what I need to come across this entire front. And I'm just going and adding in each piece in color order from lightest to darkest. So this is going to get me a beautiful gradient look. All right, you can see that it's pretty easy to work it this way because I have the glue down on the card base. I just need to align everything up on one side and then make sure that my lines are lining up here. Pop these all into place. And of course this dries pretty quick. And put our last piece at the bottom. All right, so there is our card base. And I'm just going to grab my scissors and cut these all up. I must have been a little bit off in my measurement on one of these because when I did my last card, I didn't have any problem getting them all to align perfectly, but obviously that's not the case here. So I'm just going to trim off this little edge. And it is what it is, right? Card making isn't always perfect. Okay, so there is my card base, and that looks just as nice as it would if it was all the right pieces. Okay, so this is pretty much done. That is exactly what you're seeing in the sketch. I've got my 5 little sections here, right? So now I have a piece of vellum, and I have this cut down to, I think this is like 2 3/4, yeah, 2 1/4 by 3. That's exactly right. So I've got some pieces from the Wonderful Vee-chee-nan-ki set, and I love that you can kind of mix and match some of the pieces together. Like I didn't want to do the little heart in the center of this one, so I just ended up doing a little hole here. And these guys, I'll just line up like so. And then I'll add this little one in here. So this is the one that could have the heart in the middle of it, but instead I just wanted to go with a circle. And that's gonna pull this purple right back into it. Gorgeous, right? It's just a really pretty little bloom. And I can see my vellum here. You might not be able to see it at the moment, but I'll just get this all glued on. All right, and pop this towards the top. And then I have the stem here as well. Now the stem is going to extend off the bottom of the vellum, and that's okay. It's just kind of a little structural element that ends up looking really cute. And it's not really designed to touch, so there is a little space here, but that is a-okay. So now you can see that I've got this little element here, and I'm going to go ahead and add my sentiment to it. And because it's vellum, I'm going to use the permanent black because it's going to dry faster. And I'm just going to stamp this little hello right in the corner. There we go. So now I have the two elements that I need to put together my card. Just going to pop right on there like so, and I'm going to just use some little adhesive squares. Get those on the back. And the nice thing about that is I've got someplace hidden so you're not going to see those popping through the vellum. All right, so there we go. Our first take on the sketch. Very fun and simple card with a whole bunch of paper piecing and just a little bit of stamping to pull it all together. All right, so for our second project, I'm going to use the Bold Floral Drape stamp set in combination with the watercolor brush markers to create that background look. So I already have the stamp set up on my stamp positioner, and I'm going to use a piece of watercolor paper. Now I have this trimmed down so that way I've got 1/8 of an inch taken off of it. So there will be a small reveal when I add it to my card base. I'm just going to pop it into my stamp positioner here so that way I can get full coverage from the stamp set. Now here's where the fun part comes in. So we're looking at those 5 little sections in our design, and I'm going to use the watercolor markers to create that look by just adding them in individually to the stamp itself. So I'm watercoloring right on the stamp, and I really don't care if I'm getting it into the space here. It's not going to touch the paper, so I'm not worried about it. So I'm starting with Rubelite, and then I'll move into Midnight Violet. So this is my second color, and you know we want to get 5 colors on here to indicate those 5 little stripe areas in the sketch. And it's okay if they mingle together, they will just blend and look really awesome. And then the third color I will do is Dusk. So add that in. There we go. And then Sea Breeze. All right, and then our last color is Emerald. Okay, so I've got this whole thing covered now in the watercolor, and this is a piece of watercolor cardstock on here. Okay, so now that I've got all that in place, I'm going to just take a spray bottle here and just spritz that a little bit to get some motion going, and then stamp it down. And you can see that it's kind of moving around like it would for a watercolor, but it's only staying within the confines of this stamp, which is really awesome. So I'm going to hold it for just a second or two to help that soak into the paper. All right, and there we go. I've got a really, really cool stamped effect, and you can see those 5 lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I need to get this dried up a little bit, and I am going to add some gold spatter with the antique gold, and then when we come back we'll add in the final pieces. All right, so I have my piece all dried, and I've got that gold spatter added in. So, and I also have it on our card base now, so I am ready to move forward with finishing up this card based on our sketch. And I'm going to be using the Bold Greetings die set along with the Fine Frames square set to create a little space in the center with the sentiment. So I'm using the emerald shade from the Seashore Gradient cardstock set, and I have my pieces cut out here. So what I have basically is 1.5 squares. That's what you'll need to do this. And I'm actually going to cut this guy up too. And the hello is going to run right across the middle here. Now I need this piece because I'm going to use it as a template to make sure that my square adheres in an actual square shape. All right, so to get started with this, I just need to snip off the end, my square. Snip off the ends of my square here. There we go. So I don't need this little piece. And then I need to decide where I need my square to start. And this is just a temporary adhesive. And I want to make sure that the square is basically even all the way around on 3 sides. So that's pretty good. All right. And then I'm going to go ahead and take this piece and add my adhesive right to it. Now I like to use the Tombow liquid adhesive. I very rarely use an adhesive runner, and for these little frames this is a good adhesive to use. If you don't have super great mastery of Tombow like this to get these little teeny tiny dots, I recommend using a little sponge dauber to add it, and that works out just as well. Okay, so I've got that all done, and basically now I just need to go around the edge of my square. Sometimes my eye's a little wonky and I think, wow, that's not really square. Okay, so just adding that around the edge, and you can see how I'm using that inside square as basically a template to make sure that everything stays in place. There we go. Just make sure. There we go. Perfect. And that's the other thing about using the liquid adhesive, is that there's a little bit of play time to make sure that you've got everything in place. Now I can use a little adhesive remover to get rid of any stray adhesive. Okay, and then I can just lift this up, and now I've got a perfect square in place. Now I'm going to go ahead and take the hello and pop that right there, and you see how it lines up with those edges perfectly? It's like a little sleeper bonus. These both came out together in the last release, and I love that they play so well together. So again, just a little bit of adhesive here. You can see I'm not getting adhesive everywhere, just in some key places to make sure that it sticks well. All right, and then I can just bump that right up against the bottom there. I've got that in place. Now you could leave it just like that if you wanted to, but I wanted to get that full rectangular look. So I'm going to put my template back in place, except I want to extend down to the bottom. So like so. And then I have this additional piece that is a half of one of those squares. So again, I will just add a little bit of adhesive on here. There we go. And then use my template again to make sure that I get it in place. Now, this time I want to make sure that my bottom aligns perfectly and that it comes up the sides. And then I'm just going to use my paper snips here to cut off any excess so that it aligns right back up with that sentiment. And when you're doing this yourself, you'll be able to see that very easily. Boy, this piece doesn't want to leave the page. All right, and then I just come back up on this one. And again, just snip off that little bit. There we go. All right, so now when I take this off, it looks like that hello is right in that entire frame, and then it's like one piece. Is very cool effect. All right, so see here, I have my 5 lines based in the 5 colors that come down linearly, and then I have my rectangle element right here in the center. So here you go. 2 takes on today's sketch. I hope you guys enjoyed these projects and you take this sketch and make it your own. I have a link down in the description to the sketch, so that way you can save it and use it as a reference when you're working on your projects. If you do use the sketch, please use the hashtag Altenew sketch starters, and I would love to find you out on social media and share you on my channels. Thanks for stopping by today. I'll have another sketch for you soon, but until next time, happy crafting.